All right, here we go, back again. This week, just another casual week of chips in our brains, scanning our irises, new VR headsets, and feeling sad for robots. So off we go again. Feeling good, Robin?
Oh, dude, just feast on all the amazing stuff that's coming out, and get a little bit scared too.
It's a smorgasbord of weird metaverse stories. Let's go. All right, let's get into it then. This is a big story and a good positive story about technology, which is something that sometimes we need, I think. The story that recently a man who was paralyzed has been able to walk again thanks to a digital bridge that wirelessly has reconnected his brain and spinal cord. So
let's just unpack that for a second. What? What? A digital bridge inside his body. Inside his body that allowed his brain to communicate with his legs again. This is nuts.
Yeah.
First off, can you pronounce his name? He's a Dutchman.
I would like to try, which is Gert-Jan Oskam. How good is that?
It's actually Gert-Jan. Gert-Jan Oskam. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter because this guy will go down in history. This is insane, right?
Yeah.
This is, we're traditionally taught that if you suffer a serious spinal cord injury, it's pretty much game over. You are, paraplegic or even quadriplegic. But we've always had this vision in our brains of how technology will be able to fill in those missing links where we suffer irreparable damage to our bodies. And we're thinking obviously about, soldiers, their reintegration into society, coming home from service and being able to feel again, to touch again. And of course, this is something that never affects most of us. But when it does, it's catastrophic and it's life-changing. And if technology can really fill in the gaps here, it does that thing which, I don't know how you feel about this, but whenever I hear technologists or VCs talk about technology or the investments they make, they always use this phrase, improving people's lives. And it always makes me cringe and always makes me shudder a little bit, because I wonder if they really mean it, or whether it's just one of those easy phrases that they serve up to justify investments in sketchy technology. But here is an example of something where it genuinely is improving somebody's life. And that's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Nobody's arguing that this definitely isn't a great use of all this technology that's colliding. To try and explain what's going on here, and I'll do an average job of this, but the brain-computer interface apparently is comprised of two electrical implants, one in each in the brain and the spinal cord. So the first implant is placed in the brain area controlling leg movements and decodes electrical signals generated when thinking about walking, which is amazing. The second is positioned over the part of the spinal cord that controls the legs, and the implants use adaptive artificial intelligence to decode movement intentions from the brain in real time and convert them into electrical stimulation sequences for the spinal cord. That's a lot of words, but at least on the highest level ever, I can sort of understand the theory here of what's going on. And the gentleman who says that he noticed improvements within days. So he's since been able to walk, climb stairs, navigate ramps, and stand with friends at the bar. So it just is an amazing thing, isn't it? And, off the back of that, we've seen Elon Musk's Neuralink, which has been kind of bubbling, and he's been showcasing stuff for a while, just get FDA approval.
FDA approval for a human clinical trial. A human clinical trial. I mean, it's one thing putting these implants in monkeys, and I don't know how you feel about that, but it's a completely other thing putting them inside human beings. There's basically the statistic, there are at least 42 people in the world now with brain-computer implants, including a quadriplegic patient walking and an ALS patient typing by thinking about keystrokes. Zooming out, the bigger picture here is, in that first piece, it's talking about computers being able to decode the brain signals. So take your brain impulses, understand them, and spit out the correct response on the other side. I want to move my legs, your legs move. That's the first bit. And what it's sort of taking us towards is computers are becoming more and more sophisticated at understanding our own bodies. And there's a lot about our own bodies that we don't understand. But as we come to a greater and greater understanding of this, in my head, this sort of builds towards one of the kind of the big picture ideas I have, which is about the death of the smartphone, which is taking the way we interface with technology from an external device to one we wear to one that's actually inside us. And people think I'm crazy when I say that the phone is going to die. And of course, it won't completely. We'll always have TVs and other things, but inherently, the way that we interface with technology will become more and more spatial, and then it become more mental. And when you look at these news items, you can see it starting to happen, and it feels weird and science fiction-y. But what tends to happen is you have these procedures which are necessary, like cosmetic surgery, like getting your facial reconstruction. People do it for cosmetic reasons rather than because it's necessary. It's an elective procedure. That's, I think, where we're going to end up going with this, where people will decide that they want to have these implants, not because they're quadriplegic or paraplegic, but because it will give them an enhancement, an improvement to themselves that they want, because that is part of their post-human or transhuman wish fulfillment. And I think another part of this is that we're starting to see, gender identity splinter into all sorts of different flavors and colors. And again, whether you sit on the woke side or on the other side, politically, that's going to be extremely complicated to front up to. If you have a toilet in your school that is for cyborgs, I don't know how I want to feel about that. But you can sort of see that extrapolating, that's kind of where we end up going. It's fascinating.
Yeah. What would you say would be the most likely first cosmetic use of an implant? And if it was available, would you be like, yeah, do you know what? That would tip me over the edge to be like, maybe I will get that chip because I can do this.
Well, there's already people that have done this, right? There's people that put chips in their bodies that allow them to open a door. So you have these smart connected homes, you walk up to your front door, and it's like having the keys in your pocket, open your car, the front door opens, in you go. These have already been in place for some time. Obviously, there are some complications with putting stuff in your body, because your body goes, I don't want that inside me. I'm going to reject it. You can't just put stuff in yourself and expect your body to be okay with it. There's quite a lot of things that have to happen, like very inert metals. You have to have, if you have a transplant, you have to have a lot of drugs to prevent your body from just rejecting the organ. It's not a straightforward, simple thing. But again, we've had 3D printed bones. We have had hip replacements for a very long time now. It's just where things are going. But, a pacemaker to a brain implant, I have a suspicion that it's probably going to be quite a lightweight thing that happens first, but it's probably going to be around biometrics and having a better understanding of your body so you can train better, or you can understand an illness or something like that. It's like the Apple Watch thing, and then moving further inside, becoming more and more interesting. Actually, there was a really interesting Lex Fridman podcast that I've been listening to, talking about nanobots. Oh, nanobots. Tiny little robots that
they go in and can tackle disease and stuff. Can
tackle disease, or build stuff, or build the materials that they need to build bigger bots and build other things so you can build in space. Oh, gosh.
You feel like, I sometimes feel like I'm outside of my body just listening to the world as if I'm watching a film, but like this is what's happening in our world, which is completely mental.
Yeah, and it's really easy to get lost in the details, right? You just kind of go, oh my gosh, AI can write stuff and I can talk to it, but like you go out further, just keep going out further until you can really look at the bigger picture stuff, which is, where is humanity going and how does it shape itself? And it really is like you're witnessing the evolution of a new genus of human being, but at such an accelerated speed. Like snails evolve really quickly, I found out at the weekend. Humans do not, but we're starting to, like really starting to. And I have this optimistic view of AI, an optimistic view of the world, which is that I don't see AI kicking us out and replacing us, but I do see a symbiosis of us and AI in some way that will become inevitable at a certain point. And the reason I think it becomes inevitable is because as a competitive species, the competitive advantage of having AI built in, having implants, having those upgrades will mean that at a certain point, a large section of society will do it because it's the only way for them to survive and to remain competitive. And then at that point, all bets are off. Like the genie's out of the bottle. So I think that's coming. The next story on the docket here kind of feeds into that in a weird way, because it's another piece of weirdly dystopian looking hardware, which is Sam Altman's Worldcoin. Why don't you take us through that one?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because as all AI is exploding and we're starting to not sure what is real, and with the election coming up and we're seeing all this stuff, you start to have this identity crisis where, how do we prove what is real? It's like the big question that's going on at the moment. So Sam Altman's trying to tackle this and trying to think about identity and how we prove, that we are indeed who we say we are. So I remember reading about this a little while ago and sort of writing it off. And I think the immediate reaction from a lot of people is this is kind of terrifying. As you dive into it, it's a little bit less terrifying, but...
No. It is terrifying.
Yeah.
It is terrifying. I covered this story last year, and it put all the hairs on the back of my neck up. Because basically what this is it's a little bit like somebody who represents, let's say, the Church of Scientology or some other kind of strange group approaching you in the street and saying, please, can I scan your eyeball? And what they scan your eyeball with is this like chrome sphere.
The orb.
Put it up in front of your face. It's called the orb. And what it's going to do is it's going to take a unique biometric picture of your eyeball and be able to say, you are human, you are you. And for that, they're going to give you this token, Worldcoin. Now, the optimistic view of this is it's a form of non-hackable ID. It's also a piece of UBI, so universal basic income, allowing people to own a piece of this coin. And the applications of that are far-fetched, like you'll be able to do this. I mean, just the weird thing of it, like, to
ask a layman's question, haven't the passport scanners got all our eyeballs anyway and all our iris readings when we go through?
Yeah, but this one is secured on the blockchain because that's the most secure way of securing data and everything else. Yes, it is another one of those. What was interesting about this is they raised $150 million, led by Blockchain Capital. The clue's in the name, Blockchain Capital. $150 million raise is eye-catching because anything that isn't AI has been really struggling. And there's a lot of startups that raised in 2020, 2021, overhired, and now are desperately cutting costs to try and stay afloat, basically, because no one's investing, and the subsequent Series B, Series C's that they would have been raising are just not there. Nobody's interested, and the valuations are way down from what they were. This was the exception, whether it's because it has Sam Altman, who has sort of become the patron saint of all things AI and playing nice with regulators. I don't know, but it's definitely Sam Altman's season. Blockchain Capital, well, they addressed why, some of the concerns I had about this. So this is Spencer Bogart, who's a researcher, basically said, what at first appeared to be a dystopian attempt to create a global currency with privacy-violating hardware was actually something else altogether, an entirely privacy-preserving solution to an increasingly pervasive problem. Worldcoin has the contributor community, tech, and strategy necessary to support billions of users at global scale. I see this phrase, billions of users, global scale, a lot, because it's the Silicon Valley promise, right? You build a piece of technology, you scale it to a unicorn, and then it can serve the needs of 1 billion people across the world, because there's like 7-8 billion people in the world, and if you can serve every single one of them, then you have a massively profitable company. And it just makes me sick, all of this stuff, because it's bollocks. It's frankly utter bollocks. This thing is dystopian and weird. The privacy violating component of it also, like, it needs to be foolproof, and I don't think anyone has really figured out a way for the stuff to be completely foolproof just yet. People have been using blockchain and Bitcoin to perform illicit transactions like Tornado Cash, for instance, for mixing ETH transactions. But for instance, a company like Chainalysis can just go in there and see everything. They can unpack all that. There is no privacy on the blockchain. So this whole thing just needs a lot more thought. And I just see like these guys thinking, Sam Altman, AI, the next big thing, blockchain, UBI, tick, 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 tick.
Yeah,
tick.
yeah, it's all the buzzwords, isn't it?
Unicorn.
All in one thing, plus eyeball scanning. But yeah, it's kind of surprised me about Sam Altman in a way. What do you think about him? Because clearly he's a genius, but then is he an overlord? I'm not sure. It's sort of like, this one's like a weird one, isn't it? Because it's sort of threw my opinion of him slightly out the window. I don't know what he's up to. Do you know what I mean?
Who knows what he's up to? At the end of the day, he's a businessman and he's running a company, and he's no kind of Elon Musk here. He's come through a very specific system where, you generate profit and you generate revenue. The cynical view of what he did in front of Congress was that he's playing regulatory capture arbitrage. So he's basically trying to be at the most optimal position for creating the most optimal regulation for a piece of technology that could be, and already is, extremely valuable. He claims he has no shares in
that's the other thing, right?
OpenAI. Prove it.
Yeah.
I do not, but my sister does. Who knew?
Yeah.
So my view of him is the same it is of any of these kind of so-called new leaders of the free world, new leaders of new technology, new heroes, that every time we see a hero and we put them on a pedestal, inevitably they come crashing down. Do Kwon 2 years ago, superhero, came crashing down. Elon Musk, is he a superhero? I don't know, but for some reason he seems to be kind of strange enough to cut his own legs off but keep running. And I don't know. It's very strange. But actually, Elon's a good bridge to something else that Sam Altman's been doing, which is throwing more robots into the world. Take us through this.
Yes, the Sam Altman story doesn't end with scanning eyeballs. So you may or may not know that he also has a humanoid robot startup, 1X, which has beaten Tesla in deploying humanoid robots into real-world settings. So these are out and about already. It's named Eve and has been deployed as security guards in 2 locations. Eve robots have a head and face and 2 autonomously moving arms. In addition to those features, they have these they're able to kind of perform tasks like opening doors, picking up objects, stuff we've seen before. And we did a whole episode on robotics, Boston Dynamics, and everything that's happening there with the robot dogs and all that sort of stuff. These can be controlled remotely, even through VR as well. So they seem like they're becoming kind of security robots and have undergone tests in environments like retail stores, healthcare facilities, and that sort of thing. God, it's happening. The robots
Look at its
are coming.
face. Look at its face. Do you remember WALL-E?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's the Eve robot in WALL-E. They've clearly designed it after that. Eve is this beautifully friendly-looking face with these creepy arms, and it's doing stuff. So the headline on the 1x.tech website is "Androids built to benefit society. Meet Eve, the smarter working android, available now." I mean, it just looks like someone wearing a suit and LARPing as a robot. And then in development is Neo, your intelligent android assistant, currently in development. We're living in the future.
Yeah.
It's happening right now.
Mad.
It's happening right now. And the thing about all these websites is they spout the same line, which is this is to help improve people's lives.
Have they seen the films?
I mean, I don't know. So I used to do a lot of work for Philips back in the day, and they had this kind of vision statement, which was improving the lives of 1 billion people by 2022. That was always the big thing. So they did a lot of healthcare stuff. I can get behind that because building a cheaper MRI scanner, using AI to detect cancer, these improve people's lives, no doubt. But this robot, basically what we're pointing our way to here, and I'm not a macroeconomist, so I'm going to choose my words carefully here, but there is, if you listen to Raoul Pal, for instance, kind of give you the bigger overview of what is going on here. We basically have, in the Western world, we have a population that is growing older and is becoming less productive, but still needs looking after. We have a pension shortfall, so we're not producing enough money, particularly in the United States, to fulfill pension obligations. So there is a productivity shortfall. That means that we as a species don't make enough stuff. We don't grow enough. And if you understand how much our lives have been focused on productivity at the expense of everything else, this is a real problem because there's no more juice left in the orange. So the robots, the AI, are ways for us to squeeze more out of this. So AI assists humans, robots replace humans. And so this is how they benefit society, because if we can be more productive, then we can start eating into that $2 trillion deficit growth every year in the United States, which is just a number which boggles my brain. There's another robot website, figure.ai. I mean, these are the crazy statistics. There are 10 million unfilled jobs in the United States. 7 million of those job openings are for essential roles in warehouses, transportation, and retail. There are only 6 million people available to fill these open positions, and attrition rates remain high. So basically, there's a bunch of warehouses with not enough people to go around doing the boring stuff, and robots can do that. And obviously, robots have battery life problems, and so they can't work 24 hours a day, but I'm sure they'll figure that out at some point.
I like on how their website they've got the About Us section, but they've also got the Master Plan section. Just no
the master plan.
This is the master plan. Yeah,
I know, but the values side of it is the bit that really scares the crap out of me, because there's like we're really zeroing in on the future of the human species here, and a world in which we are inviting in AI to be part of our lives, to live alongside us, not as pets but as co-workers. So their first value is move fast and be technically fearless, just taking move fast and break things and just remixing it. Product first, mission focused. And then the third one is aggressively optimistic.
That's a confusing set of words.
I'm an aggressive optimist. I'm going to shout in your face about how wonderful the world is.
Oh my days! I want to spend no time with aggressive optimists.
I know. And then number 4 is maximize future impact. Yes. So maximize future revenue. And then number 5, championship mindset.
Wow. Okay.
I'm a champion, everybody, and I'm going to win the championship. I mean,
I think I have met people like that at parties.
I know, but who writes this crap? Yeah. It's like, let's sit in a room together and let's think of really sort of interesting, buzzy ways in which we're going to just destroy ourselves. It's like, I don't know. It's so easy to be dismissive of this stuff. We kind of have to accept that it's happening, and it's happening in that kind of weird, creeping way where before you realize it, it's just there.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, isn't it? It's sort of just coming in, and there's no way of voting to stop it or anything. It's just happening in front of our eyes.
Well, there is a word for that, which is hypernormalization, which is basically what's going on here. We just hypernormalize stuff, and we never kind of go,
maybe we should stop and take stock a bit. Yeah. Well, the other just little thing to tag onto that is, on the last episode when we were talking about robotics, the NYPD has just signed up the robot dogs to join force as well. So they now work for the police, which is good. I think that seems fine. On this topic, here's a tweet which I'm going to read, because basically it was this lady who had gone to this art exhibition and she'd seen this robot arm, and this is what she said. She said, "No piece of art has ever emotionally affected me the way this robot arm piece has. It's programmed to try and contain the hydraulic fluid that's constantly leaking out and required to keep itself running. If too much escapes, it will die, so it's desperately trying to pull back to continue to fight for another day. The saddest part of this whole thing is they gave the robot the ability to do these happy dances to spectators. When the project was first launched, it danced around, spending most of its time interacting with the crowd, since it could quickly pull back the small spillage. Many years later, as you now see in this video in the tweet, which I'll link, it looks tired and hopeless as there isn't enough time to dance anymore. It now has only enough time to try and keep itself alive, as the amount of leaked hydraulic fluid became unimaginable to spill over time." So it's this robot that's like leaking the fluid out, started all happy, and then is slowly dying in its exhibition. I read this and I felt sad for the robot, and genuinely was like, oh, that's a really sad, and it's quite an interesting piece, because it talks about working for money the whole time, and if you just sort of, are constantly trying to, run on the treadmill and never really sort of enjoy things. It was like it's a really powerful thing, but also it's the first time I felt, I think, sad. I mean, maybe Wall-E, feeling sad for robots, which is that just what they want? I don't know, but it's interesting that that's happening as well now.
Well, it's metaphorical, isn't it? It's a metaphor for the futility of human existence. Like, no matter how hard you try, the hydraulic fluid spills out. The ironic thing is, because it's a synthetic thing, it's a mechanical thing, it can be maintained and put back together by humans, and then in the future by robots. But I think, again, taking the long view, extrapolating away from this, what we're confronting here is the idea that within the next 100 years, we will be able to transcend immortality. We will be able to get beyond the boundaries of our own mortality. Probably by understanding our own physiognomy better, this digital bridge between the brain and the legs, that points the way as well. Because if you can have a software solution or a mechanical, electronics or cybernetic solution to mortality, then you can pretty much just replace yourself over time to the point where you're just a completely upgraded version of yourself and your brain remains whatever it is. But that's kind of why this is so interesting, because it puts all of that into counterpoint, which is, if machines can die, then where does that leave us? And I always go back to Blade Runner in this, because Blade Runner was a film that set the idea that, artificial little beings could display more humanity than humans. And in that film, that's basically how that's set up, that Deckard is much more of a robot than Roy Batty, for instance. And so you have this tension between the perceived idea of what humanity is and then the reality of it, and how disappointing that can be. Man, we just got deep.
Yeah,
got real deep.
Yeah, real deep.
I like it. But you're right, that's art, but it's also framing this incredible question about our own mortality and where we're going. And when you and I get kind of freaked out, but also weirdly excited about where technology is going, I think it's also part of that same deep sort of dialogue we have with our own short time on Earth. Again, I went to the museum at the weekend and looked at dinosaurs. That's a way of putting yourself into very small context.
Yes.
You realize, just casually for 250, 300 million years, that was just a bunch of animals roaming around the land that didn't give a shit about AI and were perfectly happy. And then we came along, and we've literally been here for 60,000 years. And look what we've managed to accomplish.
Yeah,
Amazing.
This is true. And we're freaking out more than they probably were until the inevitable. All right, well, there's...
Meteor! Ah, shit.
It's too late. Good, yeah, some big topics there. There's also lots of little things that have happened this week.
Much.
Loads of things that we could go on forever about, but some important ones. We're obviously looking ahead to all the Apple stuff that's coming. The developer conference on the 5th of June is when it kicks off. All the rumours there that a headset's going to drop. There's lots of videos. You've done one about the death of the iPhone and an Apple essay on all of that stuff, which you can check out on the channel. Interestingly, probably not coincidentally, Meta has started to drop rumours about the Meta Quest 3, and they have their gaming showcase on the 1st of June, so maybe there's some big announcements coming there. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff that's come from this. So they've obviously had the Meta Quest Pro out, which was aimed a bit higher, and for anyone who doesn't know, the Quest 2 being the standalone VR headset that has been the most kind of popular consumer VR headset. They sold 50 million units as of June last year. And yeah, I mean, there's some rumors about what the next one's going to look like: lighter, more powerful, more capable, and a bigger focus on mixed reality stuff. So more cameras that you can have a full color pass through into the real world, and that seems the big trend that's going into mixed reality, which Apple are probably going to jump on as well. A better resolution, better kind of hand tracking, stuff we'd all expect. If I'm honest, I thought there'd be a little bit more here for this headset, but it is a step in the right direction. Clearly, mixed reality is something that's going to be a focus for these big companies as we go forward.
Yeah, I think you've got the contrast between the hardware features and the software features. I suspect there's probably quite a lot of software things built in which are quite interesting. We've got a Quest Pro. The full color pass-through is okay. It's not amazing. I don't find myself wanting to sit at my desk and have it on and do the kind of productivity stuff because it just doesn't work for me. It just feels weird and goofy. I wore that headset for 9.5 hours and ran a marathon, and so I understand what it's like to have it on your head for an extended period of time under duress. I also have the same thing, which is like, if you already own a Quest 2, why would you upgrade to a Quest 3? There has to be a fairly compelling reason to do so. And if the software isn't there, if the games aren't there, which, if you look at the Quest store, there's barely anything. Like, there's just no games. So you can use the side quest, whatever it is, the hack store, so you can sort of jailbreak it basically and get other games and stuff. But I don't know why anyone would. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah. There's still a way to go, I think, isn't there? Like, it has become the consumer headset and it is building, but there isn't really the killer app. I mean, there's like things like Beat Saber and like Resident Evil. That's cool, and there's some great VR titles on PC, but you need a good PC to run it. It's all a bit still all over the place, but we'll see what Apple have. And it's a step in the right direction, but it doesn't seem the moment that I'm hoping it would be.
Definitely, standalone headsets are definitely the way forward. If you're tethered to a PC, it's kind of very niche. But like, just being able to pop it on and do stuff, play a quick game. I still like the Quest. Don't love it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the summary there, isn't it? Also, something that we've talked about in previous episodes about NPCs coming into games. NVIDIA had a big showcase recently, and the thing that really stood out was an interaction with the character that they had using AI with the character in real time. They used a whole kind of collection of technologies to really have that experience that people are waiting for, where you can go into a game, you can speak to a character, it will respond in a way that is unique to you, and your story builds. I don't know if you want to roll through some of the tech that was involved in that. But that was a cool moment. That's something that we've been waiting for sure.
Yeah, well, I think it was pretty obvious to people that once you start to see ChatGPT, generative AI, it's pretty obvious that it has a fantastic use case for storytelling in video games through NPCs. And traditionally, NPCs have fairly limited scripted responses that can be triggered through interaction with them. And, you say, would you like to do this or this? And then it triggers a response and off you go, which is fine. And it gives game publishers a way of steering a story through predictable pathways. With AI, you can basically feed, an entire story world into the bot, and then use, some form of chat engine to power that NPC in a way that's very fluid, very natural, and then of course synthesize the voice and synthesize the animations that are then driving the actual character itself. So you have a kind of collision of all these different technologies, metahumans, Unreal Engine. There's quite a lot of very sophisticated real-time stuff going on with NVIDIA now, DLSS, which is their AI-powered super sampling thing where you can take a 1080p image and scale it up to 4K without it taking such a hit on your processor, so you get better performance and higher images. You've also got RTX GI, which is their global illumination solution, which is, again, taking all the power of like advanced ray tracing, but reducing the footprint and reducing the burden on your processor to deliver really exciting lit scenes. But then you have this technology built in, which is the ability just to talk to an NPC in natural language and have it respond to you in a way that is really conversive. What's interesting about that demo, don't know how real it is that it seems to happen in near real time. So I've done a lot of these sort of tests before where you converse with an AI, and there's always a bit of a lag. So it feels very disjointed and not very fluid, that whole thing. Because you and I having a conversation, we can talk over each other. We can have a very kind of good back and forth. But here you start to see, like, actually it is kind of happening in real time. And obviously we knew that was going to happen. We've actually been working with a partner called Quantum Engine to do exactly the same thing in our own Unreal Engine studios, because I want to have a character in the world with me when I'm performing in mocap that I can converse with and do it live and have it kind of respond and get annoyed with me and show emotions and stuff. So this is something we're also exploring, and the ability to take our own story world of Trashland, feed it to that bot, and then every week feed new information to it, and also have it able to access stories in the internet, so that we could have it on this stream with us and we could, ask it questions about this particular story. So like we could talk to this bot and say, are we right about what we're thinking here? And it can have an opinion and it can form part of this podcast. That is nuts, but it could all be happening in real time.
Yeah, that was what was impressive. If it was true and they hadn't sped anything up, it was something I'd not seen before at that level, which is cool. I wonder whether GTA.
I'm 100% convinced that they sped something up.
Okay.
I don't think it's quite there yet, or at least it's massively optimized. So I think it was more of proof of concept. This is where it could be. But this platform Conv AI, I've seen a few different ones like this. Quantum Engine, who we're working with, is another one. But yeah, this is going to make a big difference to the immersiveness of games, huge difference to game publishers. And I think, if you believe like I do that games are like this massive trampoline moment for the metaverse, or what the metaverse is going to be, then this NPC powered world in which you can choose your own adventure and have very deep, rich relationships with non-humans in virtual worlds. Big ideas, my friend. Big ideas.
For sure. I do wonder, I was going to say, around GTA 6, whether they are going to integrate some of this stuff. There's some amazing... it's GTA roleplay. If you YouTube it, there's whole like separate servers that people have set up where they go and act in complete roleplay environments. So there's a guy who like streams on TikTok who is like a police officer, and he talks in a whole police officer way, but there's people who enter their world with rules, and he goes and arrests people and all this stuff. And it's like it is one of the best demonstrations of a kind of metaverse that's working in that way. And yeah, obviously GTA 6 has been in development for kind of 10 years. There was some crypto rumors recently that maybe there's going to be something that you can earn in the game that you can take out and that kind of thing. That would feel like that might be a game that kind of introduces some of this stuff and has a big major
that's
moment.
A great example of that's a mod. And that roleplay server it's allowing people to live out a role which they never break from. But that guy still has to sleep. So you imagine that he can train an AI to take the role that he performs, or he could kind of create an entire police force, an entire squad that could then act based on rules and parameters that he set up. This could be really, really interesting. I mean, it already is really, really interesting. But I think, if we're talking about GTA 6, even if they don't introduce it, someone will mod it, or they will create a parallel version of it in which that absolutely is the case. And yeah, have you taken your clone and ripped around with it in GTA?
No, I've not. I've played with some Blender stuff, and I was doing it when there was less tools to kind of make it easier, really. But that's obviously changing quick. But no, I've seen other people rocking artifact sneakers in GTA mods and stuff like that. But yeah, I've not done it myself.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? When people scoff at interoperability, it's like, yeah, I don't know. You've got so many different pieces of IP that can coexist in Fortnite quite happily. I think if it's a free-for-all in an open world like that, like a proper big sandbox where you can be whoever you want to be, however you want to be, then I think all bets are off. So, yeah. Some other interesting stories that came out. Stephen Gray from Meta's Facebook Gaming, he did a session at Games Beat Summit and shared his takeaways from a new industry study, which actually basically had some interesting takeaways. 50% of all gamers know what the metaverse is, which is a number mostly driven by the hardcore gamer. I would dispute that because I don't think anybody knows what the metaverse is or can give you a proper definition of it because it's too amorphous. Gamers are already involved in the metaverse and adjacent tech experiences, with about a third using VR and AR and nearly 50% using cross-platform play. The cross-platform play is pretty interesting. So being able to play on your PlayStation, on your PC, on your phone. So you have all these different experiences that connect and are connected to each other. I think seeing Sony's investment in Epic, because they are now, I think they own 4.5% of Epic now, clearly working on that cross-platform thing with PlayStation. Crypto and NFTs, still a little bit down in the doldrums, and I understand why. And that kind of takes me to the other thing, which is Reddit released the Rabbit avatars with Ubisoft. And so Reddit's whole thing is that they red-pilled a bunch of people into NFTs without telling them that they were buying NFTs. It's kind of this bait and switch thing. So they released a whole bunch of collectibles, and they were actually NFTs, but they never said they were NFTs, and everyone went, wow, you are geniuses, because you never use the word NFT, you use the word collectible, and because you're Reddit and because you have all this distribution, you are geniuses. And it really gets to the heart of the problem around crypto, which is there is an education thing that needs to happen. If you want to be a self-custodian, which is to own your own assets, then there's a huge amount of value in understanding that you are in fact owning your own assets. And if you hide that, if you abstract it away, then the messaging gets lost, and the value of it being that in the first place is also lost, and you might as well use a database. So I have a hard time with soft peddling crypto and NFTs. You either do it, own it, take the flak, take the heat, but say you're doing it, or you don't do it at all and you give it another name. This kind of sort of soft thing, it feels shady. That's what it feels like. But anyway, fair play to them. Nike's sold a buttload of sneakers.
Yes, they had their Air Force One dropping dots recently and sold millions worth, which is good. The final story, very quickly, it's interesting to see BBC Studios are finally entered the metaverse in some form, bringing in brands like Doctor Who and Top Gear into the sandbox. I still kind of am waiting on the sandbox moment. I like it, and I think it's cool.
Do you?
Well, no, do I? I want to, I think, is probably the answer, but I don't know.
Why do you want to? Why do we have to like a platform just because they're building stuff? Like Sandbox is obviously going after Minecraft. It's going after the Minecraft audience, except now you own your thing. The problem I have with Sandbox is that you build something there, and then at the end of the season it disappears. It's gone. It's like, But they are, if you are a developer and you want to build a game there, they're giving away, very generous grants. You can get 50 grand to build a game on Sandbox. So if you can find a developer, you can split that with them. You can get a game built and you can start experimenting with it. I just have a hard time understanding why the BBC would build on Sandbox as opposed to Roblox.
Yes, true. Yeah, I do. If you want the exposure and you want to bring the next audience that they're in Roblox at the moment, aren't they? We'll see. But yeah, I kind of want to like it, and I'm hoping it has its moment, but I'm not there yet. But there we go. We'll see. And we'll keep up to date with these stories as they develop. But there we go. That was a lot of good stuff.
That was the pod.
That was the pod. Boom.
Every week. Are you having a hard time keeping on top of it all?
Yeah, it is almost. Yeah, it's just like a full-time job, just keeping up, isn't it? And also skipping between the threads on Twitter of here's ChatGPT, but you're not using it correctly. Threads and various things where there's so many of these things, or you're falling behind type thing. I still click on them anyway because you don't want to fall behind. But yeah, you sometimes have to take some time out just to get your head around stuff.
That's been the biggest pain in my ass in the last 2 months. Is starting a new business, trying to set it up, trying to fight your way through to like some kind of measure of success, while being repeatedly told that everything you know, everything you do, everything you think is wrong. And now you have to learn like not 1, not 2, not 3, but 50 different ways to use the same tool that probably suck. That's the thing. Like, there's so many blind alleys.
I do wonder, the amount of time I've spent on rubbish AI tools. Has AI saved me money and increased my productivity? Like, I think so, but probably not as much as I thought it had, because I've spent a considerable amount of time trying stuff that is rubbish as well. So
yeah, and you and I are not writing a newsletter. If we were writing a newsletter, it wouldn't matter. It's like you could just say, this thing exists. Oh, wait, that's what the podcast is.
Yeah.
I find a lot of... it gets from okay to mediocre, but then beyond that, you're just like, am I really saving myself time here? How do I use this? And every day I try and use it in a different way. I try and figure out a different angle in on it. And some stuff, yes, it's helping me. But inevitably, it gets you about 50% of the way there. And you're like, could I have just got there by myself? I don't know. Very limited use cases in which I go, yes, this saves me time. This is better.
Yeah.
But
same.
I obviously, you can't rule it out. Midjourney, for instance, incredible. We use it a lot. It genuinely is a game changer, and hopefully the rest will follow.
Yeah, my final thoughts on that is that, do you know what? It is really nice going to play games, go and play Fortnite, and you'll kind of just switch off from all of that, like all the kind of chaos of opinions and everything, and you're in this experience that's removed. And that's nothing new, but I do kind of think, like, as AI and bots are writing tweets and everything, people are going to get so sick of that kind of low-level content that's just like bombarded at them that it's going to fuel a kind of escape to more immersive experiences where you just want to hang with your 2 or 3 friends and just have none of that. Like, I do think that's a trend that we probably might see.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think we're betting the farm on that here. That there's an elevated version of this where things are nuanced and weird and not mediocre and not trending to the mean, as AI tends to do. It just drags everything to the mean. It doesn't elevate things. Again, Midjourney is the exception here. Very, very important to make that. But yeah, I mean, I find myself playing Fortnite a lot, and it's instructive that Tim Sweeney really focused on the social component of that, the ability to have fun with your friends. And by the way, quick plug for what's coming out. The big film this Thursday of BasedAF is a look at Tim Sweeney's Metaverse master plan. We're looking at who he's invested in as Epic Games, who's invested in him, that controversial 10-cent investment back in 2012, and just sort of tracing the history of Potomac Game Systems, which is what Epic Games was originally called back in 1991, all the way to where we are now. It's an incredible story coming out Thursday.
Nice. That's probably a good place to wrap it up.
That was a very slick plug, wasn't it? I just kind of pulled it out of my ass. Yeah.
Love it. All right. Yeah. Well, make sure you hit follow if you haven't already, and we will see you for the next episode. So cheers. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.